Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you both. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
You sound
Great.
good.
Great. So thanks for being a couple minutes early. Did everyone have a good weekend?
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
intense just reading out what's out there in the world and
I,
feel kind of
yeah, I
helpless,
mean,
but
I know. I think it's, I'll give a couple more minutes before we kind of lean into our conversation today, but I did want to just pause and take a moment. I think everyone feels it, but especially as a mom, it's like so hard to see children, families, anyone really. Um,
this is why
so
we need more women in power because we
I
would
know.
not do this to our own children.
I
I
know,
just think
I know.
that's part of the problem.
I was having that discussion with a girlfriend of mine on Thursday of last week, and we were trying to think through like, besides Catherine the Great, had there ever been another female who was kind of a tyrant? We couldn't come up with anyone. So, um, well, I'm glad you're both here today. Did you work today?
Well, we're off Mondays and Tuesdays, but that may change. But how about you, Sandra?
Good.
I had a demo today, the first in 2 years, and it was really weird to be in front of people cooking. And there weren't that many people there, so
It's good. Ease into things, right?
yeah.
Okay, well, it's 3:30. I think we'll get started and see if more people join in. My name is Alexina Cather, and I am the Director of Policy Advocacy and Sustainability at the James Beard Foundation. I'm joined today by two incredible women, Beverly Kim, the chef and owner of Parachute and Wherewithal and board member of The Abundance Setting, and Sandra Hole, the owner of Floriole. And we are going to be talking about motherhood in the industry and how to navigate that. And I would love it if you both just took a minute or two to introduce yourselves and talk about this experience and our topic a little bit today, and then we'll dig into some conversation.
You want to kick it off,
Bev,
Bev?
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
Hi, saying hello from Chicago. I own two restaurants. We're, like you said, I have three children, all under the age of 12. So when the pandemic hit, it was very devastating for our family and very difficult. And the challenges were even there before the pandemic. So we decided to put our energy in how we're going to rebuild. And that's how the Abundance Setting was founded, really addressing the gender disparity in our industry, but specifically how motherhood, the challenges of being a mother in this industry are unique and how we need to raise more awareness about it.
Great, thank you.
Sandra. And Sandra's on our advisory board, which is wonderful. And she's a beautiful bakery. Well, you can talk about yourself, but she's really
Sure.
amazing.
Yeah, so I'm Sandra Hall. I'm here in Chicago as well. And I started my business when I was pregnant with my daughter. And really, I think I wanted to have my own business to have some freedom and to be able to cart my daughter to work with me and continue being in the industry. And I didn't know how to do that outside of creating my own um, bakery. Really, I couldn't see a way forward.
Yeah, which I mean, it's just kind of, it makes complete sense, but it's also crazy because what a huge endeavor to have to own your own business just to be able to figure out how to be a mother in the industry. I mean, I feel like that's really saying something. But at the same time, kudos to both of you for doing that and being able to raise a family at the same time. I know it's not easy in any industry, but especially in the culinary industry. So I just wanted to throw out a few statistics. The gender ratio of women and men is pretty even in culinary school. And as of 2017, at the CIA, it was slightly higher skewed towards women, which is great because in 1946, there was only one female in a class of 50 when it opened. However, when we look at the gender of executive chefs, only about 13.1% are women in these roles. And I just wanted to throw it to both of you and say, like, is there a systemic issue here? Are women leaving the industry and selecting themselves out of leadership roles? As you just mentioned, Sandra, you had to open your own business to make this happen. What's going on? How are these connected?
I can absolutely talk about the systemic issues here. So it's kind of complex, but a lot of it has to do with our industry in general. Um, the wages are quite thin. Margins are very thin. So therefore, as independent restaurants, we very few are able to afford A, living wages, B, benefits like healthcare. And in a culture, in a community of government that doesn't really lend support in that way, businesses are left on their own. So women, once they enter like familyhood, and you put your family first, and when you don't have those kind of supports, it's nearly impossible to stay in this industry. Also, a lot of the restaurants work on nights, weekends, opposite countercultural lifestyles than what are generally like free schooling and things like that. So that contributes to also the isolation of this industry. But yeah, and then just a masochistic culture, that when there's a kind of a boys culture, and like microaggressions to harassment, is pretty normalized, and I think that is very discouraging for a lot of women, and they drop out. So there's a lot of reasons. Childcare, for example, 35 to 40% of the average food industry worker spends 35 to 40% of their income on childcare versus the recommended 10% of your income. So that's a huge problem that we're dealing with.
Right. And now it's like with the pandemic, childcare everywhere has been impacted. So it's hard even to find childcare, which makes, an impossible situation even beyond that.
Absolutely.
I read that statistic and I was just mind blown because it's so much money. So Sandra, what are your thoughts on the connection and what's happening there?
Well, I think honestly, I think there's in the kitchen, and then there's just our lives in general in this country. There's just not enough support for women or for families to start off. And there's a lot of I guess just cultural norms where women are carrying a lot more of the burden than men are. And so when the choice is made, what are we going to do? Or if we're going to have a family, a lot of that burden falls on us already. And so it's an easy choice to make, to exit the industry where you're not being paid very much already, and lean into being a mom versus staying in the industry and struggling and not being supported.
Yeah, it's pretty
But
heavy.
also that statistic, though, the statistic of 10% for childcare, I don't know. That just blows my mind, because that is clearly talking to people who make a lot of money, because childcare is so expensive.
It's
Right,
very expensive. Yeah. I mean, I just don't think that it's sustainable. And I just listened to an NPR podcast about how it's like a marketplace failure, because it's not even that the childcare workers are making that much money. So it's like costs everyone a lot of money. So we have to decide as a community whether like we want, it to be a public service, or have some kind of public support, just like how, fire departments supplied by our taxes, like, because is it something that we all need, like, to be sustainable?
Right. I mean, this is going to sound crazy, and I did enjoy those years, but my youngest son is 5 now, and it's not like I work nights, but still I remember wanting to get to 5 so badly, because he'll actually be in, full-time care now with school. And it's like those years that are supposed to be so precious and early on are just like a mess of juggling and stress and trying to figure out childcare if you don't have bundles of cash or a lot of family around you. And it takes away a lot of the joy, not just for moms, but I think for parents in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's like a very kind of inhumane stress that we put on parents and families these days. I mean, think about like we have the 12 weeks like family leave act, but it's unpaid, I mean, you're guaranteed your job if you left in 12 weeks. It was very eye-opening to have a neighbor who came from Germany who said her and her husband have a whole year paid off. And
Right.
they actually have up to like 3 years at like a deducted cost, and they can take it when they can also apply it to like times of distress for their family. And I thought, Wow, that's like a really creative way. Like, I mean, there's got to be creative ways where we can even implement 4 weeks. I mean, let's just start at the
Right.
basics of 4 weeks, because like I went back to work, or we tend to go back to work really fast, and you know, in terms of I don't know how it felt for you, but like, you know, you're still healing, you're still creating bonds with your child, you know, which are really important for their development. And yourself even going through post-traumatic, you know, the whole post-traumatic stress of the whole giving birth, or you know, it's hard for families and moms and dads. Like my husband had to go back to work in a week. I mean, literally, like, you know, financially we couldn't afford it. But meanwhile, we're sending rockets to Mars, you know, for 10 minutes. Like
Right.
like it's, you know, so it just makes you wonder, like, there's like a disconnect, you know, there's just like, um, so many people who would benefit, especially women of color, would benefit from solving like these basic needs of childcare, livable wages in the industry, benefits that could support the families, and just make it more sustainable, because we need it's an industry that really it's at a ahead right now, right? We also one of the last industries that have a sub minimum wage,
Right.
that is a legacy from post-slavery, and you know, we don't fully pay people what they're worth. And if we don't acknowledge and raise awareness about these very issues as human beings, meanwhile people think chefs are celebrities, but honestly, in the behind the scenes, they're not. I mean, you break down the hours, they're not making a lot of money, and it's not sustainable. And so I think there needs to be more awareness about this.
I agree, and it's something, you know, we've been hosting these Chefs Connect listening sessions where it's just an opportunity from chefs around across the country to tune in and talk to one another and support each other. And one of the things that a chef who works in training, you know, in a culinary school told us is that the applications are just have plummeted since COVID. You know, a lot of people aren't wanting to go into the restaurant industry because of the last couple of years, but that's just piggybacking on what's been happening for so long. You know, but if we continue to move in this direction where we're not supporting both workers but also mothers, we're going to have so few people that we'll see less restaurants again. So I think we really need to start thinking through, you know, the child tax credit was a start, but of course that's gone already. What other ways do you think that policy could help here?
The tax credit, how could that help? Continuing it on?
Or yeah, or other ideas. You know, a lot of people might say right now that the industry's been through so much with COVID that they can't even think of, you know, something that is bells and whistles when it's really just survival, right? So what would you say to someone who says, "Oh, now's not the time. We have to kind of just get back on our feet, and then see if we can do things to help parents and mothers with
I really
childcare."
think that yeah, it is a really difficult time for all of us restaurants, but I personally don't think the burden should be on small businesses or restaurants to provide paid parental leave, which I think would be the best place to start, honestly, is to really begin there. Um, but we can't put that burden on the small businesses. It's just too much. I don't know about you, Bev, but Beverly, we've just really changed our business model, and we're paying more. We're providing paid time off. We're doing all of these things, and right now it is hairy. Every month I'm looking at the numbers and biting my fingernails, like, okay, are we gonna make it another year? So I can understand why somebody might say we can't do that now. But again, I think it's all about policy.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with her. Like with parental leave is a very important policy, maybe just starting somewhere with it. I think another piece of the puzzle is the childcare, just thinking through that complexity of it. I definitely think there's a multitude of different ways people take care of their families to have childcare. I've experienced many different kinds. I had at-home childcare, and I also had found a night care through the Head Start program in Illinois, which was when I was making so little money. I was making $31,000 for a family of three. So I was able to qualify for a stipend, which was like $20 a day to put my child into a night care program. And everyone in that night care was a restaurant industry worker, which was really kind of cool. But also, eventually I wanted to be at home to take, put my child at home to bed. So I needed at home care, but having some options available would be really good into investing and kind of researching. I mean, I don't think we're the only industry that needs night care, but maybe I think the credit could be smart, because then you can also, like, sometimes it's your, I don't know, your mom, but she can't afford to take time off of work to provide care for your child. We're all kind of under a lot of stress financially. But I think that thinking through the childcare portion is really, really important, because you could have the parental leave, but if you don't have a sustainable way of staying in the business and having your children covered at that, that quality care, it's going to be, you're going to still see a little bit of that drop off, right? And I think other things to think through are, just looking at, like, keeping the wage issue up, in people's minds, living wage, and, holding people accountable for that. And it is hard, because I'm the similar way. Like, we've eliminated some minimum wage. We've, pay healthcare stipends. We have started a parental leave program, but I'm not making money right now. So it's a lot of pressure on me as a one sole business, but we can, as a community, because then I become incompetitive. I become out of competition with everyone. So people don't understand or see my prices, and they just say, well, why would I go there? It's like, I can go down the street for something less. So it puts a lot of pressure for businesses, like individual businesses who don't have a lot of money, to do the right thing. So I think that there does need to be policy in place that ensures that people are doing the right thing, so you're not at a competitive disadvantage.
Right, and it becomes an equity issue, right? If some restaurants that have more funding can afford, these extra things where they get paid parental leave, or they're able to pay part of the child care, that's great. But not everybody's working at a place that has that kind of backing.
Absolutely.
And while it might impact, a handful of people, that's fantastic for those people. But across the industry, we're not making meaningful change. So I definitely agree with you on the policy piece there. I did want to share a few, Beverly, I know you were curious about some statistics about our benchmark study, which we're going to release a little bit later this year, in the very near future. I did want to share a few findings that we had. Women reported a lack of mentorship and role models and clear next steps for growth. There was a massive disparity to capital between men and women. Men made more than women in wages over time by $5 an hour. And many women reported that the challenging work schedule was a struggle for them and their families. So all of those kind of bundled together to support what we were talking about a little bit earlier on, where it's just an uphill battle, and a big reason why we don't see women in some of these leadership roles. So at the beginning of 2021, Beverly, you and your husband / co-chef, along with your longtime mentor, I believe, founded the Abundance Setting. What was the impetus for that, and how is the Abundance Setting supporting mothers in the industry?
I mean, it's kind of like when you see a crisis, you don't know what to do. Like, immediately we just thought about cooking meals for the moms, because I know for myself, I don't have I have family, but they don't live close enough for them to, like, drop it off for me, or like, and we just thought that could be an amazing way for them to get quality of life back. Also, it could be a mentorship program, and they're exposed to new cooking styles as well, and have that one-on-one mentorship with a chef that is providing the meals. So we created this program, 3 chefs, 3 moms, and it was for 3 months. And every week we provided meals for the whole family. We included local CSAs, which highlighted women farmers. And it was super empowering. And it's so, like, micro, like, supportive, but like we've become sort of like lifelong friends now and lifelong mentors. And that's really, I mean, the meals were certainly a help to help reorganize themselves and get kind of feel what it was like to get support. But it was actually the mentorship, the I think the lifelong mentorship that's going to help them the most, the access to the networking, the access to the opportunities that you present to them. The doors can really open through that. But I think they definitely appreciated the meals too, because it helped them save money, save time, the cleaning and the stress. And, you know, the sad thing is like a lot of chefs don't feed their kids the best food because we are working like 12 hours a day sometimes. And
Right.
the last thing you can do, and you're just so tired and burnt out. And unfortunately, our children receive the brunt end of that, I feel like. So I think like bringing as a woman leader, it was always kind of like it wasn't part of the story. We lived in a man's world, a young man's world with no children, right? And we couldn't compete. Like it was like expectations you could not compete with. And you also would never see like a pregnant woman or in the hotline, or you wouldn't see all these things. You wouldn't know how to deal with it when it actually happens. Like, and I don't think it's malicious. I just don't think people have seen women going through the whole experience of getting pregnant, having the baby, coming back, continuing their work. It's not like an office job, right? It's very physical. But to actually have meaningful conversations of what that looks like and normalizing it and having a pathway, talking about it in our businesses, creating space for us women to not be like silenced, and that our children aren't silenced, because our children get the stress that we get. So like, you know, if you're unhappy, your children are unhappy, you know. And that's why definitely what many times I wanted to give up, because I thought I was going to make my children unhappy from choosing this career. And I couldn't be fulfilled if I didn't have quality of life at home, as well as some hope for advancement in this career, where I can make a living wage, I can provide and reach my full potential as a person, and not have to choose one or the other. Because I think as women, just like men, we have dreams, and we also love to be nurturers as well. You know, it's both. But for the way it's set up in our society, we have to make a choice, or we're, you know, unless you have tons of support from another end, which is unequitable, right?
Right. Yeah, when I read that you were providing moms with food for the first 3 months, it was just like warmed my heart so much. It's such a beautiful way to welcome a family and a mom after motherhood. And like you said, a lot of us don't live near our families, and it makes such a big difference to be nurtured and cared for and connect through food. I just thought that was so beautiful. And Sandra, I know you're on the board, right? Of the
On the
Motherhood,
advisory board. So
on
yeah.
the advisory board. And how has that experience been for you? And can you talk a little, I mean, you said a little bit earlier how you started your own business when you had your daughter. And I read somewhere that, you know, she was on your back opening and closing farmers markets. What has that been like for you? And what other advice would you have for moms who are in the same situation?
First of all, I have to say hi to her because I saw her name pop up so she's supposed to be in school, Stella. She gave me the muscle emoji. And I was like, oh. Awesome. Okay, so sorry, I got off track there. So I was really impressed that I think this is something that's kind of been on my mind for a very long time, and for a lot of women chefs, and I'm sure for chefs in general, think about this a lot of how can we help women succeed in this industry, because you know, we need to have an industry where both men and women can really continue working. I've seen so many people come through my bakery and they've made the decision to start families, and then they leave and never come back. And it's really, really sad. Very, very talented people just are there's an exit, and they take that off ramp, and they don't come back. And so I loved that Beverly was trying to find at least a small way to help some people try to stay engaged and have that mentorship. And so, you know, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And it gives me hope for the future that, you know, I think you've done a great job so far, Beverly, and it's exciting to see. And I would have never thought, like, it's such a wonderful idea to provide meals for people who cook for a living. And I think it's something that is easily overlooked, but it's such a small little luxury, not even luxury. It's like you said, nurturing, and gives back some time to these women to just relax and be with their families. And it's great.
And so, Beverly, you mentioned, you know, there's paid family leave, all well and good, but if it's not paid family leave, rather, I should say, a lot of people that work in the industry don't have the resources to lean on, so that they can't take this time off. And if they do, some people that they work with might be frustrated, right? Because they're having to work extra shifts, and there could be these microaggressions when they come back. I know that even when I was not working in the restaurant industry and I had a child, my sorry about that. I have
You're
an
good. You're back.
Instagram time limit on, so I don't do too much social media, and it popped up right in the middle of our conversation. I was saying, you know, I had 12 weeks off, but I couldn't take it because there was too much pressure to come back as soon as possible for work. How can we push back against that to really, you know, make sure that we're taking the time and the both with our families, but also if we're being given this as a policy or practice, and then we don't even take it? Well, what do you think about that?
I think it's really important that we have paid family leave, right? Because if both men and women are taking family leave, then I think there's going to be a lot less of that sort of stigma that's been associated with it for a long time, and it becomes normalized.
Right. Because it's true. Even, you know, men who do take that time, they're kind of can sometimes be given a hard time. But I think sadly, the more that men, it really is kind of up to men to be pushing this forward for women in addition, you know, and to make sure that it's normalized for both men and women to take it. Beverly, did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think as a culture, I even myself get microaggressions as an owner of my own restaurant. And I like to just show up because I want people to see me, even though I don't have to be there, but like literally because people are like, well, it's so nice to see you. I haven't seen you for so long. And you know, it's like you don't know what that means. You're like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah.
And in the restaurant industry, like, it's just so hands-on. Like, you know, there's, especially during this pandemic, you feel so bad, you know, not being around. I mean, it's just one of those businesses. It's in person. So in order to make my life work, I have 2 full-time babysitters. I mean, think about that. I mean, it's literally, I have to work so hard to pay just for my 2 full-time babysitters, just so I can show up at service or be backup, because, you know, our margins are so thin. Like if someone takes a vacation on the weekend, that sometimes there's like maybe 1 or 2 people at the same time. Me and my husband have to step in, you know, and it's like, it puts everything like a domino effect, like, oh, I can't be there that Saturday, I'm sorry. So I think in general, we just need to raise this awareness of more empathy, more understanding of people. Because a lot of the people who give these kind of microaggressions have no kids, have no, like, they have no understanding. But once you have kids, you're like, oh, I get it. I really get it. And we have a lot of single moms in our program. I mean, imagine, it's so hard because in an industry where you're expected to show up, like never call off sick, you know, people count how many times you call off sick. I mean, it's hard. It's super hard. So I don't know. I don't know what else to think, but maybe just some empathy. But the paid time off would really help. We have paid time off. So in Illinois, they require paid sick leave. So, which I don't know if that's in every state, which I think is a basic, like having, because a lot of us, especially during the pandemic, it's kind of like unsafe to even like to show up when you're feeling sick, right? You just make everyone sick. But literally, I grew up in the culture where I never called off sick.
Yeah.
I was like scared to lose my job to call off sick, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
so, or like you can't afford to take time off. So maybe just having a culture, I mean, it's and so interrelated to the general public understanding the cost of food as well. Because I mean, I'm sure like owners would like to do more, but it's also because we run on such thin margins. So I think it's a complex issue that, you know, honestly, we need to think through. I mean, it's culturally, but like I also look at the bigger picture of like how hard this industry is, and is there a better way? Is there a better way? You know, you know, to have this sense of security. I think it's so important for all of us as professionals to have some kind of sense of security, like backup. I mean, most chefs, cooks I know live paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
And so that alone creates, and then without like a lot of what I grew up with was without benefits. So it's really like, it doesn't take very much to get someone off this path. So a lot of talented people, I think it's just knowing our worth too. Like us as leaders standing here, like is also giving us ourselves some space to talk about that quality of life. And I literally want a black hole for 2 weeks because I haven't had that for the past 3 years, and plus this pandemic. You know, I have literally like pushing myself to the edge of my mental capacity is very low. But in this industry, I feel like we push ourselves always to that limit, like literally on the edge all the time. And because there's always something to, like, if you get a call, you're like, oh, like someone wants to talk to you, you're like, oh shit, is the manager putting their notice in? Or like, and then it's just so much that you're managing. Oh shit, is it the oven that's like not working? Oh shit,
Right.
the roof is leaking. You know, it's like, oh no,
Something.
in Chicago, it's like it's flooding. You know, it's like constantly. I feel like there's not like any breaks mentally for us, and it's a little much. And I think as leaders, giving each other the space and to like not be, I don't know, just to acknowledge it. And I think nowadays this is the moment. Like I only have 100 years on earth and I'm halfway through it. So if I'm not going to do something now, it's never going to change. And I feel like everyone's like, it's never the right moment. Oh, we're not, this is the right moment to make the change. I mean, I don't know. That's how I live.
No, I think it's great. And Sandra, earlier when we were kind of talking a little bit about how policy could advance, I really don't think it should be up to putting the onus on individual restaurants and the owners to make this change happen. I think it's so great to hear you both talk about your experience. And I think that's where it's really important to hear lived experience, but it shouldn't be on the two of you and all the other moms who are shouldering so much to make this change also financially. It's crazy.
I think like the hard part right now for us as business owners and with hiring and labor, the hard part for us is we're trying to create jobs where people really want to work for us, and it's becoming more and more necessary for us to do these things ourselves because our government isn't doing it, the policy isn't there, but people want this, and right now the easiest thing is for them to demand that from their employer, I think. And so I don't know, we need to be pushing for the policy changes because I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to have restaurants and bakeries and food jobs if we don't catch up somehow. And I don't know how to make it work the way, unless people are paying $10 for a croissant or what. So help.
Yeah.
So what's our call to action? We heard a little bit, the topic here was navigating motherhood. And I think often mothers have such a different experience, especially in those early years of parenting, but we need more than just moms and women. We need men, we need non-binary folks to really get behind this issue, to push it forward. I don't want to just silo it all to moms are the only ones experiencing this, because I think the more voices we have and the more support we have behind this issue, the better the results. And it's not just us also experiencing this. I know that other people want to be home with their kids as well. But what else can we do as an industry and as a people? Everybody loves restaurants. You know, no one wants to see them disappear. How can we be advocating both for support for restaurants, but also for a more equitable and sustainable industry as we move to the future?
Ooh, that's
In
a big
30
question.
seconds. No, I'm just kidding. I
Um,
mean, aside from having people that we know in West Virginia call Manchin and tell him to give the child care credit and paid family leave back, I know that's a start, but that seems to be dissipating. Is it sharing stories? Is it connecting and using your voices just to talk to other people about it? What can we do to kind of move the needle and not just let the conversation end here?
well, I feel like, remember when everyone got rid of plastic straws because of the turtles in Instagram? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there is such a power, which is like the double-edged sword of social media, is that like on one hand, you know, this is necessary evil, but on one hand, like we can get a lot of voices out pretty clearly, very fast. So, and it doesn't take much, but like maybe just advocating, you know, and following these organizations that are trying to progress women forward. And we just did an event with Fab last year, and it was like 60% were women and moms, but the rest were just allies, you know? So I think like Americans want this, you know,
Right.
Americans want, because we all have, you know, reasonable to say that our workplace is better when we have women in leadership and not just all men. Men are saying that too. And we hope this is a better future for our children. So, well, that's like the very least you can do is just follow and educate yourself, like, and listen to the voices, let women lead, and vote for more women in power. But like, I think in your own little world, you're just like, I think a lot of these issues aren't unknown to people unless you like dig into it deep, like in the, so, man, I just need those, you know, all of our allies to support us. Because, yeah, I mean, on top of being working moms, like we are, we're also on top of our big businesses on the pandemic. We're also advocating for women. And we're doing this on top of everything else we're doing. And, you know, it's a lot. Like, we can't do it on our own. We can only do this with all the people involved, like all the community stakeholders involved. You know, everyone's got a sister, mother, whatever.
Yep.
Everyone's affected by this. I think we have a common good here, and we can fight for something, you know, bigger than ourselves. You know, we're asking everyone to participate in this conversation. You can follow the abundance setting, the James Beard. You know, if you can focus your policy and research and advocacy, because we're not like a policy group, but like you guys can fight for these things, and we on the ground floor can ask for, I need to hear your stories, I need to hear what's important to you. That's what the abundance setting, we're going to do a benchmark survey this year just on women and mothers, so that we can go to James Beard or bigger organization, hey, please fight for these policies, because this is what people want actually, and this is what's going to help keep people in this industry. We're the second largest industry, private industry in America. So we have a huge voice. We have power. People like to take that power away from us, you know? And
Yep.
I think collectively we can do something bigger than ourselves, but we cannot do it on ourselves. We need to have these conversations and not be tired of it. Sometimes we get tired of it, but keep until we see action, until we actually see physical action, the fight's not over, you know? Because people like to talk, but they don't actually like to walk the walk and actually put it into like something actionable. So just, you know, do something actionable, like help us volunteer, donate, do something actionable that furthers the cause. And I mean, that's pretty much all I could say.
No, I think that's
Sandra,
fantastic.
what do you think?
Go Bev. I was just thinking that I think the abundance setting has done a really good job of telling the stories, and I think for a lot of people who don't have children or who haven't experienced what it's like to work in an industry where you're not supported if you're a mom, um, to hear those stories is the starting point, you know, and we just have to keep telling those stories and amplifying those stories and And then I think it's going to set in, right? It's going to be digested. And then, you know, when women win, when moms win, everyone wins. Just as you were saying, Beverly, we need to have more women leadership, and we need to have more women in this industry to move it forward.
I agree. And thank you both so much for all that you do, for sharing your stories, and for being here today. And Beverly, let's keep in touch about that benchmark survey. Definitely interested in hearing more about that. Happy International Women's Month to you both, and to all the women out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexina.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sandra.
Bye.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Woo-hoo.